Hello and welcome. I'm Plain Stranger. Here is my one-man show up and tell talk show where I every week speak about something I found interesting or relevant to current moment or just what I feel to talk about. Today is the episode number 6, uh, and I want to talk today about cultural adaptations of works of art. You know, uh, during this week, I've stumbled upon some handpicked catalog of vintage anime series. Not only series, but predominantly series that were coming out during 1960s, 70s, 80s, and even to the 90s. Uh, what I've noticed uh, as a peculiarity was a number of adapted titles based on predominantly Western literature, some classics mostly from different countries. There were, of course, English classics, authors like Agatha Christie, of course, who could miss her? Like Robert Stevenson, Treasure Island. There were, of course, some French authors like Victor Hugo, Alexander Dumas, uh, Jules Verne. Of course, there were American classics like Mark Twain. There were some even adaptations of movies like Little Women that became anime, and all your fairy tales, all you have in mind when you hear a fairy tale, like Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, like I don't know, Pinocchio, for example, all the Western classics that Disney appropriated lately and turned into profitable copyright protected franchises. Uh, Japanese weren't using Disney characters, so they Cinderella, yeah, of course, they were using literally literary sources, so there were no copyright infringement. And of course, there were more modern adaptations like Dracula, Frankenstein, and there was general interest in Western culture, in Western world. Japanese uh, producers, directors, they wanted to translate that quality storytelling, those characters, that world, that literature depicted or constructed in case of fairy tales. Uh, and that was, I, I wouldn't say it was the most popular. It was popular enough for that trend to continue for a couple of decades, predominantly, as I get it, through mid 70s to mid 90s. And it was very active, and more so, Japanese were interested in creating original anime series, or just animated films based on Western characters that took places in locations in the Western world, in America and Europe, and that weren't depicting the characters they know they meet in day-to-day life, in popular local culture. And to me, that of course, the first thing I associated it with was how desperate uh, cultured layer of human society, so-called intelligentsia, was about uh, Western culture. It was a way to escape the reality they had in Soviet Union, and all the downsides of that reality. And to the late somewhere during the late stages of Soviet Union, I would say somewhere post 1968 invasion into Czechoslovakia, where Soviet Union showed it's not afraid to come back to old ways of Stalinism, to show the brute force, to push down any insubordinates, not only inside the country, but in uh, countries depending on Soviet Union, even involuntary. Uh, though it also hardened situation for people within Soviet Union. Those last naive dreams about socialism with a human face were pretty much dead for a thinking class, for intellectuals after this point, and people were just trying to survive, to get their own comfortable private lives. And one of the ways to escape that brutal reality and build their own world of dreams were, of course, translations and adaptations of Western classics. It was predominantly classics. Soviet Union hardly ever got anything modern, anything, I would say, relatable to the era. It was pretty much classics, like that. Pretty much same set of authors and characters and stories. There were adaptations, movies based on Agatha Christie works. There was Shakespeare, of course, and I would say that some of them were pretty decent. Not uh, nowhere near the level of original, yet for a Soviet level, for what Soviet culture could produce itself within itself, it was on a pretty much decent level. Um, of course, there were movies and cartoons for kids pretty much every Soviet child, every Soviet kid knew Astrid Lindgren, Sweden, uh, uh, author of books for kids from Sweden. She was so well known. I would guess outside of Scandinavia, Soviet Union, and probably though I would argue Soviet Union could be outside of Scandinavia one of the places those were most popular, and I was talking about intellectual class, and then I'm starting talking about children books, but that whole thing, that intellectual class wanted to somehow, I don't know, uh, provide some antidote for propaganda in schools and in organizations, official organizations for youth, and they wanted their children to have a different way to look at life, different stories, different characters. So yeah, of course, continuing that theme, there were uh, that well-known fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen, The Adventure of Niels with the Wild Geese. There were pretty much all the books, as far as I remember, all the books by Tove Jansson about Moomin trolls were published in Soviet Union, translation, of course, and there were at least four animated films based on those stories. And of course, there were heroic action movies like Alexander Dumas' Three Musketeers. There was Captain Blood. There was that Treasure Island, and you know, Soviet cinema didn't actually weren't actually offering much of action in local culture. It was posed as some brutality, as some imperialist cult of blood, of violence, and officially it had nothing to do with new newly constructed morality of builders of communism. And of course, Soviet movies lack that very much. People here, even in the movies about war, there was not much of actual war action outside of maybe the trilogy made somewhere in the 60s. There was a huge epic trilogy about World War that used huge scenes made with I would guess thousands of people taking place in each scene. So outside of movies about war, and even most of those war films, there were no action. Actually, there was no fighting. There was no people. I don't know, kicking someone's ass. There was no blood. There was no. I don't know. Blowing up helicopters. Hardly any chases. That stuff. Soviet movies were low budget ones, and until the late 80s, when there were some international co- collaborations with movie studios from another countries. There pretty much was nothing like that, and while those adaptations followed that, there was still some um, lost heroic that newly constructed Soviet ideology did not include, and directors and I would say producers, but Soviet Union didn't really have producers in modern in modern meaning of that word. Though, okay, people who made movies could only show a little bit of something like that when it was about some potential enemy. They are so bad, they are doing that and that, they are so brutal, they are so violent, and they have no morality, and they could do that and that. It wasn't ever overboard. It wasn't even no, it was nowhere near. I mean, some movie like Terminator, Russia never had anything like that. And still, people were interested. And later, when the perestroika began, and after the formal collapse of Soviet Union in the end of 1991, there was some trend that was called history about history. Yeah, history about America. That was that if something was American, it was from America, it was about Americans, it was automatically perceived as good, interesting, awesome, cool, whatever. It wasn't a long trend. I would say it was about 5-6 years maybe, but it was so intensive that pretty much every movie at that time tried to steal something from American culture, American look, American way of life, and of course there were low budget attempts. There were comically off. I mean, what people thought life in America is was nowhere near that what life in America in fact was at time or any time, you know. Um, Still, there was an interest, same as in Japan during 70s, 80s, different reasons. Yet still, there was a huge interest. Uh, the thing is, since the end of that hysteria, that pretty much ended the whole era. Uh, there was pretty much nothing. There were, I could not remember. I watch movies. I was actively watching Russian movies at least until 2015 or so. Um, I cannot remember any single adaptations adaptation of Western literature, or any remakes of Western movies, no matter American, British, European, Asian, nothing at all. And characters that were in predominant in Russian local movies, locally produced original movies, were also pretty much always um, Russians, um, acting in Russia, doing some Russian stuff, and there were no characters who were, I don't know, Europeans, Americans, and I would say there were little to none movies that take place somewhere outside of Russia or without Russian characters. I again, with all my knowledge of Russian cinema, I could only remember some art house historic movies like The Sun by Alexander Sakurov, that takes place in Imperial Japan. Outside of that niche, there was nothing at all. And it's not like my impression, my personal experience bias. Actually, I've talked this week with my friend about that, and he couldn't remember either. I mean, since somewhere 93, 94, 95, since 95, absolutely zero movies made in Russia that were showing life outside of Russia, that were based on stories produced somewhere else. And it's a great change of trend, and it of course has something to do with political changes in Russia, in uh, broken dreams, lost hopes about how perestroika would end, how capitalism would work, and so on. But still, even in historical sense, Russia had no movies that were that were centered on anything but Russia. While Japan, on the other hand, while may not be as interested in West as it was, there are some other trends happening there. As I understand it, there is um, some bits of nationalism, some traditionalism coming back to Japan, maybe not predominantly within its population, but at least to some marginal groups. Uh, Still, there are movies, or I would rather say anime series, based on uh, Western culture that, for example, Romeo X Juliet series, or some series that are based somewhere in Europe. You know, um, that aristocratic England, that revolutionary France, World War One in Russia and in Europe. There are many themes still presenting in Japan, and it's not always presented like Here is our man going to America or going to Europe. The story of our Japanese character abroad. No, it actually has quite a big niche about foreigners doing foreign things in foreign lands. There is still interest. I mean, the whole anime genre moved in the past decades more towards moved from storytelling more towards fan servicing. That is what market dictates. Yet still, there is some interest in cultures all over the world, and predominantly Western culture. And uh, that complete denial of anything but Russia within Russia during last nearly 3 decades could give you a little bit of understanding why it turned out to be like it is, and what may be a signal of a problem if you meet it somewhere else. I mean, uh, America, for example, the center of all media, of all I don't know, streaming, of all movie production, of all animation production. It still has it still has uh, movies uh, based on some different uh, locations. It likes occasionally a story or two from different cultural backgrounds. I mean, like that whole Indian millionaire from slums movie, for example, or something like that. Yeah, America still keeps pretty much as self-centered as it is. It still has some interest in world around it, and that is a good thing, I guess. Uh, it This video becomes very long. I wanted to talk about one more aspect of adaptations and its effect and its prerequisites, but I guess I'll leave it for next time and add a couple of words about intellectual educated class and how it relates to that. For today, it is all. If somebody hears it, then I don't know, like, comment. I wouldn't care much for likes, but comments are welcomed. Ask questions, criticize me, or I don't know, offer some new topic you think would be interesting to talk about. I'm open to suggestions. Goodbye.